Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Prelude to Positivity with Tommy Geraci. Today, my guest is an actor, producer. I'm pretty sure he's a director as well. And he's been on a lot of things you've seen him in, so he looks familiar all the time. His name is Jamel King. I'm really glad he's finally here chatting with me. Hey, Jamel, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. It's Wednesday today, so it's good middle of the week. Well,
Yes. Oh
Christmas.
my goodness.
Jeez. The year went so fast.
It really did.
It's like even if you're not busy, it still flew by.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that it's like a product of COVID.
Yeah, it's time. We don't have any concept of time anymore, I think.
Nope, not at all.
So for those few people out there who may not be familiar with you yet,
Yeah.
I wanted you to go and tell us a little bit about you and like how where you grew up, how that was for you, and like what age did you start with the acting bug?
Damn. Okay, we're going all the way back. So yes, my name is Jamel King. I'm an actor, director, producer, writer. I sing as well, and I produce and write all of my own music, most of my own music. I grew up in upstate New York, in the Albany area. Um, and after college, worked in Manhattan as a model for a while, and then moved to LA. Like, I'm insane. Like, when I was 8 years old, I had this whole plan written out about how I was going to go to school, because obviously that's what my family wanted. Get the degree, do the whole thing. And then I was like, once I get my degree, I am freaking out. So I drove cross country to LA, me and two of my college friends. And then I just kind of had to figure it out. I knew one person, well, two people, but otherwise it was just kind of like, okay, let's make it happen. It was kind of weird because I do feel like the universe just kind of puts things in your life and is just like here. And you just kind of have to show up and do the work. So that's kind of what happened. I was at a Starbucks, and there's a guy who I'm still friends with to this day. He was like, "Hey, I'm directing a play. Are you an actor?" And I was like, "Yeah." And this is at the time with paper headshots and resumes. And I always kept one on me because you never know. So I gave it to him, and he was like, "Oh, well, come down." And mind you, the theater was only like a block away. So he was like, "Just come down to the theater and audition." So I auditioned, got the role. Um, Interestingly enough, I was one of the understudies, and the guy couldn't go on that night. So I was up and quickly became like a kind of a fan favorite. The character was kind of an effeminate gay character. He was the best friend. And at the time, especially, I was young and twinky and shady as all get out.
You was a kid in
So
the relationship.
yeah, yeah. So they had an industry night. I got my first manager there, and they introduced me to a guy who introduced me to my agent. I was with them for 12 years. And then finally got with my new agency because, when I was in New York, like, I was modeling quite a bit. And just like it is for women, it is for guys. Like, there's that pressure for your body to look a certain way. And I don't think I've ever really struggled with like comparison issues, but you're kind of forced to when you're in this kind of industry. So it just wasn't necessarily that good for my mental health. So I tried to step away, and did successfully, and put all of my effort into acting and music, and here we are today.
Cool. And also at that time, and still I think too, New York is more modeling Broadway, and then
Yes.
LA is pretty much modeling, but more acting than anything else, and
Yeah.
not too much live theater in LA as in New York would be, or there isn't much of like a urgency to that in LA.
Yeah, yeah. Like, the tours will come through for sure, but it's not and they have Theater Row, of course, but it's not like Chicago is huge for theater, New York's huge for theater. LA is definitely like the film and TV, although it is kind of shifting a little bit.
Yeah, well, since especially since the pandemic, it shifted a lot.
Yes.
So speaking of projects,
Yeah.
I've noticed that
Yeah.
you seem to choose, or the projects choose you,
Uh-huh.
important issues around them or like really good messages when it comes
Yeah.
to people that haven't been visible all the time or haven't been visible in the proper light. So do you tend to choose projects that way, or have you just been lucky and they come to you? Or are you like
Yeah,
generating that you're attracting it? Is that what's happening? Or are you like,
I guess. Yeah, I feel like the universe has kind of just placed me there half the time. The project that I just did is something that I fully was like, I have something to say. But the one thing that I've always said is I think it's really important when you have a platform and you have a voice to use it for good if you can. There are times where I do struggle with that concept sometimes because I do understand that entertainment is sometimes a medium for people to escape real life. So you don't always want those heavy issues. And so sometimes I do try, if I am going to tackle a issue myself, to do it in a funny or interesting way that's not so like, well, damn, like now I feel even worse.
right, right, right.
So I definitely do my best to represent underrepresented communities because it is important. I was just talking about this with somebody earlier that I just wish as a kid I would have seen more people that looked like me or that were the same sexual orientation as me because then I wouldn't have felt so out of place or alone. And so I feel like again with what we do, it is kind of our job to leave the world better than how we found it. So that's part of why I do take that route more often than not.
And then speaking of the projects, All American is one of those projects. So I feel like All American was probably one of the better shows that had people of color in it and people of all different backgrounds in it that
Yeah.
were represented properly instead of being second fiddle or
Yeah.
maybe being the fool in the situation. How was it to work on a show like that with that type of respect for the characters?
Yeah, and I can say that is definitely a testament to Warner Brothers in particular, but also our showrunner Nkechi. She um, that is super important to her, and she does it so beautifully and so gracefully, and I'm extremely grateful for her presence in my life and career. Because even just watching her work is just super impressive because it is hard sometimes for people of color, but also for women, especially to break through the noise. So hats off to her for that. Um, Working on the show was actually really interesting because as an actor, you go into the situation knowing your lines and having intentions and there were times where I had to really step back and I was a coach on the show. So it was a really interesting thing for me to step into a world with all these testosterone straight, toxic masculine guys because on one hand, like I'm showing up to the job, I'm excited to be there. Then you have to step into the world of like being the coach, but then like being around things that kind of trigger you, it's a really interesting balance. And I felt like I was finding that balance almost every episode. And more so when it was like the football episodes, because I was like, I was triggered. I for sure was. And I feel like I did a good job of masking it and all that, but it definitely caught up to me sometimes. But Warner Brothers is an incredible company. Warner Brothers is very good about diversity and inclusion, and it felt like a family. Everybody is at the top level of their craft, just showing up to work, having fun, having a good time, and everybody felt so welcoming and warm. And I never felt out of place. I never felt uncomfortable. Um, it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, and I'm extremely grateful for that experience.
And the show is still airing now on CW because I know they changed a whole bunch of stuff about CW, but that show survived the changes somehow.
It did. It did. So we're currently filming season 7, which will be the last season of the show. And then All American Homecoming also got canceled. So this will be probably the last bit you'll see of it, but it is available on Netflix.
And there's always reboots and reunions and things that happen.
Yes, yes.
all these
Totally.
places to go. So I mean,
Yep.
nothing ever completely goes away anymore, which is great, I think.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Project like that.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I can't stress enough how incredible it is to work on a set like that, where everybody feels familial, but everybody is just incredibly kind, and you look forward to going to work, but you also feel like you're getting something out of it, like you said, showing that representation, being a part of that history, it's surviving, 100+ episodes, and people being able to identify with the characters and the storylines. It's truly an honor to be a part of something like that.
And it seemed like this handled in a way where everybody was mindful and aware that they were bringing up other people with them, even people that were just watching the show because of what they were doing and how they were doing it. I feel like it always had that feel to it.
Yes, yeah, 1,000%, and that was the consensus. Like as we were filming it, is that this is we're definitely like having fun, and of course the paychecks are nice, but like it's for a bigger purpose.
Yeah. And then from that, you have a project currently that is called A Different Kind of War. In
Yes,
the same vein, where you took a role that is still unfortunately controversial in
yes,
this age, but really important to say this is happening. This is
yeah,
how it's happening.
yeah,
Not pretty.
yeah.
So you want to talk about that a little bit, if you can.
Yeah. So it's interesting that I've had that idea in my head for a very long time. I grew up volunteering. It's something that was instilled in me as a kid, to always give back. And the one thing that struck me was I would always see homeless veterans, and it made me mad because I'm like, why? Like they're sacrificing so much for our freedom, and when they come home, whether it be resources or lack of resources or whatever it is, it's hard for some of them to find their footing. And I'm like, why are we not doing a better job of taking care of them when they come home? Furthermore, there was a story, in I don't know if you've read Matthew McConaughey's book Green Lights.
I did actually, yes.
Yeah, and it's an interesting way of like just kind of pairing together like just things not being coincidences, but things are placed in our lives for a reason. So there was that story, and I don't know if you've seen of that veteran. He fought in Vietnam, and he passed away, but wrote his own obituary and used his obituary as an opportunity to come out of the closet.
Oh wow.
So in researching that story, I was like, that's super heartbreaking. But in researching him in particular, Edward Ryan is his name, he came from my hometown. And I was like, okay, that is a green light. And I felt like it was really important for me to take, because I didn't know what angle I wanted to take on the veteran story. And I wasn't sure that I wanted it to be a gay story, but that's what it ended up being. And it's not even necessarily about him being gay, but it is about him fighting for a country that doesn't always fight for him. It's about seeing things on social media that kind of chip away at your self-worth a little bit, because on especially on certain websites, I won't name names, but certain websites, people are just free to say whatever they want, and it can be really depressing for somebody who's weak mentally. And that goes up and down with everybody, but I wanted to bring to light that sort of issue of like, that's what soldiers are fighting for, is our freedoms.
Right.
And part of that freedom is just to live how we all want, without prejudice, without like, the world is so beautifully diverse, and trying to take that away just feels counterproductive. And I definitely just wanted to give a voice to that, whether how small it is, that faction of people who don't feel supported, by the people that they're fighting for. But then on top of that, just veterans, mental health services in general, I feel we could do a lot better of a job. So it's for everybody. But the angle that I took was kind of that harsh angle. And like you said, it is controversial. I understand that it's controversial.
It's important.
Say again?
It's important at the same time because it's time to put it to the light, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And so with it, I don't have any expectations of film festivals. Like, I know it's hard to get into them in general, but like, I'm realistic about the project that I made. I know what I made, I understand what it's saying. So, the expectations aren't super high, but this is just the first of many. And I'm also using it as a proof of concept to hopefully make into a mini series or feature that can go on one of the major streamers.
I can see it on Amazon for sure.
Yeah, oh, 1,000%, or like Max or
Yeah.
HBO.
But Amazon does tend to do a lot of stuff where they take chances with things that might not be mainstream or might not be considered acceptable to everybody, but they
Yeah,
still say, you know what, we're doing it because it's art.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
And you were
1,000.
also talking about another project before about your uncle.
Yeah, so that one is a total departure from the whole gay thing.
Right.
So my uncle Charlie, he was a part of the 72, 73 Dolphins team in the NFL that won back-to-back Super Bowls, with 72 being an undefeated season. He was also the first and only Black athlete to be recruited straight into the NFL out of high school. And for me, I was like, hey, all of that's really interesting, but all of this happened in the 60s and 70s. And I'm like, what was that like? Like, what was life like to have all these cool accomplishments? And racism wasn't as prevalent up north as it was in the South. So, what was it like to then navigate a world where all you know is inclusion and diversity, to then be thrown into the NFL where it's a mix of people? Like, what did you experience? And then you have like JFK getting assassinated. You have Martin Luther King being assassinated. You have the space race. Like there are so many really cool things that happened in his lifetime. And I'm kind of a nerd in that way. So I'm really fascinated by all of it and wanted to mix the two worlds together. So that's what I've done. The first draft of the script is done. I want to protect my family as much as I can as well. So my cousins have been really instrumental in helping me shape the story and bringing life to the characters in the story, which are our family members. So that's kind of been interesting too, because there's a lot of family that I don't even really know. So that's been a really cool way for me to connect with family members and get to know their stories and get to know who they are and kind of get to know who I am in turn.
And where you came from.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Was it still a time though, the 60s and 70s, where there was qualifiers? Because I know that for people of color, it was always like you could be the greatest black athlete, but yet they would never give you the true props of you are just a great athlete in general, and it doesn't matter what color you are.
Yeah, I think in that time, especially since like it's not the NFL that we know today, like it was just a totally different type of NFL. And I know in particular, like they were going to recruit his brother. They weren't even looking for him, and he just happened to like be an incredible athlete. And they were like, we could do something with that. And it's funny because my uncle didn't really even know football that well. He just knew how to run. So they were like, just give him the ball, he can go. And so that was part of the development in the NFL was like just getting. So he bounced around from teams to teams. Like he was with the Steelers for a while, he was with the Browns for a while, he was with the Dolphins for a while, he played in a Canadian league for a while. So it was just a really interesting time, I guess, for that in particular, where and that was one of my main questions was like, how does that come about? Like, how do they know to go and look for certain people? Like, especially with the media not being as like what it is now, where everything's at your fingertips. Like, how do you even? So I'm still looking for the answer to that question.
Okay, well, hopefully you find it. If you do find the answer to that one.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking about how entertainment has changed since COVID and in general. So for you, how has it changed and how have you navigated it? Because you had to change a lot of things about how you approach things, how you audition for things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the main things. I think that's probably one of the biggest changes is everything is a self-tape now. There's no in-person auditions. I was actually driving through Hollywood not too long ago and like some of the audition places that I used to go to, I'm like, oh, they're all boarded up and stuff. So yeah, like casting directors live almost everywhere now. So I have my little setup. I have my backdrop, and you have your ring lights and your microphones, and so now that's like part of your business is making sure everything looks pristine, and of course, you're doing a good job in the audition. Um, and moving from kind of network television being king to streamers being king, there's a lot more wiggle room when it comes to creating your own stuff, which is why I have been creating more of my own stuff. But a lot less stuff is being made. So that's kind of been a bummer. And then with the stuff that is being made, like everybody's doing everything now. So now you're seeing a lot more like A-list celebrities in commercials. You're seeing A-list celebrities doing TV now, quote unquote TV, as they're in the streamers and stuff like that. So it is a really interesting time where like I'm not just auditioning against, my type of person. I'm like one of my last jobs that I went in for, it was it was, well, I don't know if I should say what it is, but like Jamie Foxx got the role. And so it's like, that's my competition, which is great. And that's great company to be in. But it's also like, well, damn. like,
So like the chance of them not picking Jamie Foxx is kind of limited for you.
yeah, no, yeah. But in by no means am I salty about it. Like it just is what it is. It's the nature of the business. But it is an interesting time to be in where like everybody's doing everything, but at the same time, it is easier now more than ever to create things of your own. And with the rise of social media and having like TikToks and things go viral and stuff like that, like it is an easier time. And I recently have not recently, but I stopped doing TikToks as much because there is a weird, I don't even know what it is. Like I grew up like I'm a trained actor. So now navigating a social media world where like that's kind of a decent way in, there's like that kind of, you turn your nose up at it a little bit because you're like, well, that's what,
Everybody.
not talented people. Yeah, like yeah, like it's
There's like a little stigma to it where you're
a
like,
little bit, yeah. Yeah, but then at the same time, that's just kind of where things are headed. And if you're not at the forefront of it, or at least on the bandwagon, you will get left behind. So I've started to get back more into it, but I'm also busy. So like trying to navigate it all. When I tell you being an adult is hard, it
I
is hard to stay moisturized, to
know,
stay hydrated, get enough sleep, make sure your partner feels loved and protected, make sure your pet feels loved and protected, like taking care of your mental health, meditating, going to the gym,
keeping up with your friends.
keeping up with your friends. Goodness,
I
it's
was
a
just
thing.
saying that we don't often, even though we can just text somebody, it's even hard to do that sometimes because you don't want to get into a back and forth that's going to last hours when you don't really have that.
Yes, totally, totally. Yeah. And then you don't want to,
It's just like
yeah,
you're busy.
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it's something. So navigating it has been kind of tricky, but we're making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody did a good job with it. But the thing is, I know that the biggest complaint would be that they don't get feedback right away.
Yeah, yeah. I I guess it depends on what's important to you. Like feedback isn't necessarily important for me. If I know that there's an adjustment that could have been made, or like because there will be some times where I'm like, I wasn't given much information, if any, really. So I just kind of have to create something. Then I'll be like, well, do you guys need something else? Or I'll give like two different takes where I give two different things. But yeah, I guess it all depends on what you value when it comes to the audition process. Like if you want the feedback, yeah, you're probably going to have a problem now because you're not always going to get it. So you just have to be comfortable just giving the best that you can give and then just keeping it pushing and not putting too much thought into it.
I think that's probably the healthy. Just that's how it is with social media too, though, because you can get immediate feedback, but sometimes you can put something out and maybe it falls flat, and then all of a sudden, months later, somebody picks it up and goes, "Oh, I'm going to share this," and then you're
A
fine.
thousand percent, a thousand percent. And it's interesting the types of things that resonate with people. Like even with the TikToks, there are sometimes like I'll spend 3 hours on something. I'll think, oh, this is awesome. And a couple thousand views and likes, and you're like, well, damn. And then the thing that you just did in 2 seconds, you're just like, okay, whatever, I'll just put this up viral.
Mhm.
I, I think at the end of the day, with all of it, consistency and persistence is key. And as long as like you enjoy doing it and don't make it a job, make it fun. I feel like that's kind of the key in all of it.
And we were talking about being busy and having your hands in multiple things. So when you do
Yeah.
things like that, what are you most passionate about though in all that you're doing?
Oh man. I don't know. I think it would it might be I do think that the acting portion of it for me, because that's where I was trained. That's just my bread and butter right there. Like I enjoy so much diving into a character and playing so many different types of characters. Sometimes it can be draining, sometimes it can be exhausting for sure. Like I did a show like 2 years ago. It's on a network called Here TV. It's called Turning Teddy. I play Teddy, and getting to certain places sometimes I feel like that was one of the most recent and most wild for me because I had just lost my great grandmother, and I had a scene where I had to like I lost it all, and it was like 2:30 in the morning by the time we got to that scene. I had been there all day. I didn't really have that much to give. um and the director, thankfully, Wayman Boone, he's that's my homeboy. We did the first take. He was like, "Nope," and I was like, "Nope, okay." We did it a second time. He's like, "Nope, still not it." And I was like, "Okay, motherfucker. You know what?" By the third, I was like, "Give me a second." I had to go to a place that I was that it was super triggering. Like I had to think about my great grandmother, and it's stuff that I hadn't really dealt with. And I was like, "All right, let's get it." And that take, when I tell you, it took me days to recover from. But sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to go to the uncomfortable place. And I feel like that definitely helped me heal in a lot of ways because I hadn't dealt with the grief of it because I had been working so much. And I was like, and again, it's a defense mechanism. So when you're navigating acting in your real life, things can get blurry. But you know, I think if I had to choose, I would say acting. But I also enjoy the production aspect of things. Like problem solving is one of my specialties, but then directing is fun too. But then with music, you get to express yourself in a much different way and like play with vocal tones and harmonies and vocal productions is one of my favorite things on this planet. Um, and I'm not classically trained in music theory. So even for me, just figuring out chords and stuff like that is fun for me. So acting to answer your question, but I love it all.
Not like that, but I also feel like with you, that some actors, when you see them, you're like, oh, that's so and so playing a role. And
Yeah.
when you see them, you look at them as it's the actor playing the role. But then
Yeah.
some actors like you, I feel like when I look at you in a role, I see you as the person that you're portraying instead of seeing you portraying a person.
I appreciate that.
And there's not a lot of people that do that. Even like really famous actors to me, I'm like, oh, that's so and so playing the role.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people give so much of themselves over to the role that you're like, that's just that character. I don't know. I don't know that I can't see that person anymore. I'm just seeing that character.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely try my best to fully commit. And again, being trained, like it's fairly easy. It's not easy, but it's fairly easy to do when you're trained in it, and that's how your brain works. Um, but I think what happens sometimes is like if there's a role that you're not fully invested in or you don't understand the character, that's when it's like, okay, I guess.
Not
But
the
like,
words because he's supposed to say the words.
right, yeah, exactly. And I do think that casting is plays a huge role in it too, because sometimes like there have been times when I've struggled a little bit to kind of find a character's voice, partially because I just didn't understand what was being asked of me. And I could have done a better job of asking the director or the writer. Um, that happened once for sure. But I do think for the most part, I do my best to like have all the information that I can.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's super helpful in getting to the heart of the character.
And then with the music, I think for when I look at you and I hear you or I see videos that you've done, it that to me, I feel like you're exploring every aspect of your personality, who you are.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
almost like that's you playing and showing off your different sides of who you truly are.
1,000%. Because for like, as with the audience looking at something they want to escape, sometimes I do use music as an escape to just explore the most random piece of me and talk about things that maybe I wouldn't normally talk about, or I don't know. It's so much fun to be able to bring life to a song and portray emotions, because you can do it in so many different types of ways. And I think that's the fun of it.
Yeah, yeah. And it looks fun. It always looks
Yeah. Yeah.
fun. So, what is something that you absolutely cannot live without?
Ooh.
Mm.
Damn.
You have to get a little in your business, not too much.
No, please be all up in it. Be all up in it. Something I can't live without. I'm such an easygoing person that there isn't really like I don't want to say I'm indifferent to a lot of things, but I've learned a lot in my life to be fine
Without.
with or without. Um, I feel like the one thing that I probably could not live without is probably like, oh God, authenticity.
Mm.
And I feel like sometimes that does come at the expense of certain relationships sometimes, because it can be hard to meet people, and I feel like I'm not the type to just like go along with everybody else. And like one thing that really annoys me is like if there's a person in the room who's like, oh yeah, I've seen that podcast, oh yeah, I've heard that song, oh yeah, I've seen this movie, oh yeah, and like they can talk about everything. I'm like, there's some bullshit going on there. And I'm a Pisces, so I'm much more of an observer than I am anything. And so in in my brain, I don't know what it is. There's some sort of like thing that I'm just like, I can't get fixated off of, like, that's some bullshit. Why are you performing? Like, and then I get in my head and it just becomes a thing. But
I know.
authenticity is probably the I mean, I know that's like a deep and maybe like,
It's okay. We've had many different answers to that one.
okay, yeah,
I've
because
had
it's
everything from coffee to
ah
um, air to like my wife. It's
ah
lovey-dovey. It's funny sometimes, really funny. And the next one is the same. Something that you wish we could all live without
oh man, the need to be validated by everybody else.
in social media.
And social media, like, it's huge. Like, I talk about this all the time, and I think social media, it can be really, really good if used in the right ways. But I do feel like sometimes people use it as a crutch, to like hide behind a screen, whether it's to talk shit about other people. Can I curse on here?
Yeah, it's a podcast.
Okay. Okay.
It's not on PBS.
Okay, okay. But whether it's to like have that keyboard warrior mentality, or if it's to hide behind filters, or whatever it is, I just wish that people were felt better about themselves, to just be themselves and be all right knowing that they don't have to possess the qualities that they think other people have that make them likable, because what makes you likable is you just being you. Those are some of the things that I wish I knew earlier on in life, because I feel like, as gay people, you grow up as a version of yourself, and you're constantly trying to find versions that are acceptable. And what's going to be acceptable in one circumstance may not be in another, and you're constantly trying to find that balance. And I think, in my early 20s, I feel lucky to have found it in my early 20s, because I feel like even people in their 50s and 60s
Oh no.
find that balance hard. But in my early 20s, because I remember there was a guy in my college, who, blonde hair, blue eyed, 6'2", muscles out the ass and in the ass, and and he, right.
That's what about
Right. And I always would like look up to him, because every girl wanted him, every guy wanted him, every guy wanted to be him. And there was just one day where it clicked, like, I'm never gonna be a 6'2" blonde haired blue white guy, but I can be the best version of myself. And at that time, especially, I just wasn't. Like, I was 130 pounds. I struggled with acne issues, and I wasn't happy, and I didn't know myself.
Mhm.
And I started to work on myself. I started going to the gym. I started eating better. I started feeling better. People started responding to me differently. I didn't have to hide behind that sassy, queenie persona that I had that wasn't inherently me. And not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's you, and that's dope. But I knew it inherently wasn't me. It was definitely a shield. Um, and that's something, again, people just have to navigate and get through. But long-winded answer to your question, the need to feel validated by other people, because most of the time a lot of people don't even like themselves.
Yeah. Well, most of the time, people who are acting out is because they don't like themselves.
1,000%.
Even the people on the keyboard that are doing the nasty comments on everything
Yes.
hate themselves. Let's face it.
1,000%.
What are you most proud of at this point?
You know what? I feel like little Jamel is proud of big Jamel, because I think the industry is really, really hard. There are so many different things that could get in the way, but I think that, so I'm proud of my upbringing first and foremost, and that's a true testament to my great grandparents who raised me. Um, and I think holding on to the values that they've given me, um, and staying true to that and not letting the world break me down, I think is one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. And that's the one thing that I want to continue, regardless of where I am in my career, because careers come and go. People will forget your roles and all that. But like, I just always want to be a good person and continuously be known to be a good person who isn't trying to be shisty or shady, and is just genuinely interested in other people and wanting people to succeed, because that's genuinely who I am at my core. And the one thing that I think that I'm probably most proud of is that I've stayed true to that.
What is something that people tend to misunderstand about you?
That I am actually nice. Like, I am genuinely this nice and positive and happy.
How do people misunderstand that? I know you to be only that.
Well, I feel like there have been times where people have either mistook it for me being like, I'm trying to work the room to get something out of somebody, or, and this just happened on All American. Actually, this is something I really had to talk to my therapist about. So there was a director that I was really excited to meet, and I told him how much of an honor it was. And after a second, like, I just saw him look, and he was just like, okay, and then kind of walked away, and I was like, okay. And I do feel like there are times in the industry where, like, you'll express to somebody what their work or their life has meant to you, and it can be taken as, okay, what does this bitch want?
Yeah, yeah.
And I genuinely don't want or need anything other than just to tell you your impact on my life. And so there have been those times where it's been like, well, no, I genuinely am being nice. I am genuinely being like, I don't want anything. I don't need anything. So yeah.
Well, that's a good one though. I think that's an okay one to have.
Yeah, right?
It's not a bad misunderstanding. It's just people not being able to believe in the authenticity because nobody else is authentic.
Right. Well, and all to say, just to put this out there, like, I'm not a perfect human by any means. I don't ever claim to be. I'm not saying that by any means, but I do think that there are times where, like, I will approach a situation in all of my, like, peppiness, and people are like, "The fuck is wrong with you? Are you on drugs?" And, like, I'm not. I'm just genuinely happy and positive and, like, ready for everything at all time. I'm high on life. And I do feel like that is misunderstood as, like, he's definitely doing cocaine. which is not the truth. And that not that there's anything wrong, no shame, no judgment to people who do it. I just don't.
But that's also people seeing you through their eyes and not really seeing you. Because if I have issues in my life that I'm not happy about, how dare you?
Fair, fair,
I'll be unhappy like I am.
fair.
Right? I mean, most people walk around thinking that everybody is supposed to be the way they are,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for sure. Where can everybody find you online? Because I'm sure they want to follow you and find out.
Yeah, please do follow on the journey. So I believe they are all Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are Jamel M. King, Jamel M as in Michael King, King.
You haven't jumped over to Blue Sky yet, like everybody else is.
No, not yet. I kind of struggle with social sometimes. Like I will take hiatuses for months. And I'm kind of in one right now just because I'm busy.
Yeah, yeah.
So eventually I'll figure it out eventually.
I'm not giving up the X yet, but I'm on Blue Sky too because I figured if half the people are going over there, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go over there too and see what's happening.
Right.
Just so I
Right.
can
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah, just to see what's going on over there, what y'all got going on over there. Like you can't get rid of X. It's like the OG.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are adamantly deleting it, and I'm just like, but you never know if he sells it again and something comes along. I want to have it. I'm going to keep it.
Right.
I'm
Right.
up back to followers though because everybody left and literally deleted their account. So you saw all the follower accounts went down. But
uh,
I'm going to hold on for a little while.
Hold on for dear life, all you can.
I built that up. Come on.
There we go. Right. I feel like Twitter is one of the harder ones. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Is one of the harder ones to like gain a following, or maybe it's just because there are some people who need to just say what they feel at all times. I'm just not that type. Like I like my algorithm is all like Britney stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you see they have a new Little People Fisher Price Britney Spears set now and all her different video
No.
outfits? Oh yeah, so cool. My sister sent it to me last night. I was like, I'm buying that, or someone's getting it for me for Christmas. I want it.
Can you please send that to me?
I will send it to you.
Oh my God. Obsessed.
It's got each outfit from each popular video, and
Uh,
it's the coolest thing.
it sounds like the coolest thing.
What's coming up next for you?
So yeah, as of right now, it is the project about my uncle. I've been consistently like auditioning and all that good stuff. But yeah, I've been balls deep in that. Slowly working on the second draft. Working with my family on that. A part of me wanted to do sort of kind of a pseudo like behind the scenes documentary thing because there is a lot of really cool things when it comes to like me getting to know my family and stuff like that and all of us connecting in that way. And I think it would just be a cool thing to have and be a part of. So I'm working on those two things right now. And that's kind of it. I'm slowly starting to come out with new music. So what had happened was in June, I was in Beverly Hills, and Beverly Hills is important because my car got broken into in Beverly Hills,
All places.
of all places, and they stole my backpack, and in my backpack was my thumb drive with all of my music. So all of my music got stolen.
Oh God.
And so it kind of made me mad. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna take a break. Maybe this was a sign. I don't know. And so now I'm slowly starting to get back to like, because I do produce almost everything myself. So doing it all myself is a lot of work that I enjoy, not complaining about it. But
But have to redo it.
right. So I'm gonna have to redo almost everything, which is fine. It is what it is, but that's what's been the holdup on this current project.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten from someone?
The best advice. Hmm. Well, I think I guess this can be categorized as advice. Is my great grandparents, they gave me just some of the best foundation for success in life. And it's just you're unstoppable. you can do and have and be anything you want in this world. You just have to work for it. Um, and so I think that's probably the biggest boost and advice, I guess. Just work hard for what you want and don't let anybody tell you that you can't have or be or achieve, because you can, and that's all up to you. I remember, like, I we were watching the Frankie Lyman story. It's called Why Do Fools Fall in Love. It has Vivica Fox, it has Holly Berry in it, and I remember watching it with them. This was like in the 90s and or early 2000s, and I just remember saying, because Vivica Fox is a funny character, and then I was like, I want to be in a movie with her. And fast forward to, like, this is like, I don't know, 10 years later, 10 years, 15 years maybe. I had done my fourth movie with Vivica Fox and ended up like being, she was managing an artist at the time who was a friend of mine. And I was at the studio and with all of them, and we were all just kicking it. And I was like, what a full circle moment to like be in my grandparents' house watching a movie, talking about what I wanted to do, and like getting more than what I wanted. Like it's truly a testament to just like perseverance and truly not letting anything or anybody stand in your way of just doing and having and achieving. And of course, things can be improved on and shifted and all that. You just have to at least put the idea down. Everything else will come later. And I feel like once the universe feels like that you're ready, it provides everything you want and more.
I think so. That sounds correct, I think. So you would give to other people, or is there a specific thing that you've given as advice to someone that you think is particularly on point?
Mm. Well, there are often times when I'm talking to people, like I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day, and he'll always say, I'm a dumb redneck. And and that bothers me.
Not good.
Like, you I feel like words have power, and how we talk about ourselves have a lot of power. And it really bothers me when people talk negatively about themselves. And so I feel like if there's any advice that I've given to anybody, like I'm like, no, 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 you're not. Like, sure, we all say dumb things. We've all done dumb things. It's just being about being better than we were the day before and learning from our mistakes. But like, if I could give anybody any advice, like, you are 1,000% worth everything and anything you want. Just do it. Just go for it. Like, and the chips will fall in place, and it may be difficult, but you just have to kind of do it. But you are enough. That is the advice. You are enough, period.
And is there anything that you'd like to leave everybody with?
You are enough.
Yeah, that's definitely good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that I wish and want for the world and for everybody is just to be kind. Everybody is going through something, and even though we may not always talk about our struggles or our problems, or don't want to burden anybody with our struggles and problems, I think kindness goes a long way. So if we can all just find it in our hearts to be kind, regardless of who you vote for, regardless of your sexual orientation, what you agree with, what you don't agree with, find common ground, because I can guarantee you we have so much more in common than we do. I sound like Kamala. So much more than what separates us.
I say that all the time too, though, before she was even saying it.
Yeah, right. But genuinely, I really I wish and want for the world to just kind of, and I don't necessarily think it has to be a kumbaya moment, but just be a little bit more understanding and know that you're enough and you're valid in your feelings and all the things. Just be kind.
At least have tolerance.
Yeah, at least
At least, at least that.
bare minimum.
Yeah. Perfect. I really, really enjoyed the conversation, and I want
Hey.
to know that you have open invitation to come back anytime you want Just
Perfect.
give me a call and we'll be like, okay, fine. And hopefully one of these days there's a drink happening in West Hollywood.
Yes.
Or New
Oh my
York if
God.
you find yourself in New York.
Wait. Are you in New York now?
I'm in New York right now. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you
I'm
were in
back
LA.
and forth. I'm always back and forth.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh,
So
we'll have to talk
we'll
for
do
sure.
it. Thank you so much for taking
Yeah. Thank you.
sharing with us. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.